Hello there folks, back again for another video. In this one I thought it would be fun to dive a little bit deeper into Middle Earth at the moment and sort of where my head is when it comes to the game and the miniatures range and what I'm doing and all that kind of good stuff. So yes, we are here on the now called Warhammer website because I thought it would be kind of fun to dive in and talk a little bit about inspiration and what out there at the moment is really pulling me in different directions when it comes to designing forces and all that kind of good stuff. So I thought I'd start off with evil, actually, probably a good idea. Evil's an interesting one. I don't necessarily get drawn to evil forces, as it were. And I have already got quite a large amount of Morannon Orcs, because obviously there was lots of stuff that came with Battle of Osgiliath. We've got loads of the traditional Mordor Orcs as well, including a whole host of the different characters and the character Orcs and all that kind of stuff too. And so that's kind of blending together into what I'm going to probably use as my kind of mainstay force, I think, at the moment when it comes to the evil side of things in the Middle-earth strategy battle game. With that in mind, it's been really interesting sort of looking at what's been available for Mordor over the last little while. Obviously, we had Gothmog who came out, and obviously was part of the Battle of Osgiliath set. And we have a couple of these really nice character sets and things that they did as well. I really liked the Snagger and Grishnak sort of redo that they had. I think that was really nice. I'm always drawn by the ring wraiths and sort of taking them in different directions and that kind of thing, but I think the majority of my evil force is probably going to be focused around Osgiliath and those kind of final fights in the Return of the King and that kind of thing. It's mainly because when you look at some of the artwork and stuff, and also the actual movie itself, I really love the kind of desperate nature that you get from the Battle of Osgiliath, and it kind of reminds me a lot of why Helm's Deep works so well, where it's kind of these beleaguered humans having to sort of take a stand against insurmountable foes. But with the Battle of Osgiliath, it feels that little bit more desperate almost, which I think is kind of interesting. And also the Orcs have the upper hand in this case, which I think is really cool. So it kind of gives you some interesting things to play around with when it comes to models and stuff that you want to use in your games. This is also kind of drawing me towards the way that I want to represent Gondor on the tabletop. I guess there's always that kind of draw to do the shining Gondor defending the walls of Minas Tirith kind of thing, but I kind of like the down and dirty defenders of Osgiliath that have been there for years and have just been fighting against the Orcs constantly on the sort of frontiers, I guess, of the Empire and or the kingdom. And I think it would be really interesting to sort of play around with that a little bit more, because obviously you've got the new models for Damrod, Madril and Faramir, and there's some really nice stuff out there for them as well. In terms of like other characters and stuff, like I really like let's go and find them actually before I forget what they are. So I really like the Osgiliath veterans. I wonder if they still do those as miniatures actually. That would be kind of interesting to see if they still do them. Oh, I don't see them anymore. Oh, no. Oh, there they are. Yeah, I really like the Osgiliath veterans, and I got a set of those to use in some games. Because, again, I really like that kind of pushed to the brink vibe that you sometimes get with Gondor, and Osgiliath in particular. And I think they're really awesome characters that would be fun to paint up and drop into some games, some warbands. Obviously, it would be very nice to have another version of Gandalf and Peregrine Pip in there. I do already have a Guard of the Citadel version of Peregrine Took. And also I've got the old metal Gandalf the White as well. But it could be kind of fun to play around with that a little bit more and maybe get my hand on those new plastic kits, because they're very good. I also really like the Cirion or Cirion and Beregond kit, and I love Cirion Cirion as a character. I think he's awesome. Unfortunately, I think I just got Beregond from like eBay, or it might actually have been the Middle-earth trading group on Facebook actually. And that's very nice, but I kind of wish I got Cirion as well, because I'd love to twin him with Murin and Dra and do like a historical army that would match up quite nicely with the stuff that was in the supplements and things that we looked at in the past when we were looking at Maroon and Dra, and I'll link that video somewhere, so you'll be able to go and watch that. It's kind of cool. But yeah, really like Osgiliath and that sort of beleaguered feel to things, and I think it'd be fun to dive in and do some more stuff with them, expanding the warbands that were available as part of the Battle of Azanulbizar set. So obviously I had a set of rangers and you had a set of warriors. Maybe throw some more characters into the mix. Get myself some knights, perhaps. That could be kind of cool. Although that does kind of take things more down the Shining Knights vibe, I suppose. Maybe just a few more veterans could be a fun way of doing things. And maybe playing around with some of the other characters. That can be kind of cool. But yeah, so that's just sort of one of the angles that I've been going down at the moment. Kind of get some inspiration to do some more stuff with that. But I have a friend who collects, or is collecting, or has some Gondorians, some Minas Tirith forces, so I'm not necessarily intent on that being the thing I'm working on at the moment. I think previous to this I talked about sort of upgrading my Khazad-dûm force, and that is definitely happening. I have got myself a Floy stone hand, and actually the Balin model being in resin was actually really good. Much better quality than I thought it would be, considering that it's feels like it was probably going to be fine cast, but I think they did a really nice job with the sort of updated version of that. And I've also been doing some repaints on my Dwarf Rangers as well, so I've gone back in and I've been doing touch-ups with colours and things like that. I've been very much encouraged to dive into Khazad-dûm as a force, because I've seen the game Return to Moria, and in that you've got the older Gimli who's kind of encouraged the dwarves from the different mountains to come back to Moria to dig deep within it to uncover the riches that were once there. I'm not sure that his cousin Thorin is quite happy with that, but there we go. So I got myself some, I'm repainting some of the characters, working on Balin, working on Flowy Stonehand. I've already got a Balin, but I might do a repaint or like an update version with the slightly nicer resin sculpt potentially. And I've also been going through and doing some work on the Dwarf Rangers as well and bringing them up a level, and I'll show you that in a future video. But I've been very, very inspired by Return to Moria, talking of inspiration, and that's been sort of taking me deeper and deeper into the idea of making a full Khazad force to use on the tabletop. I also am very tempted to get Durin and Mardin, sorry. Too much Maroon and Dra in my mind. I really like those models, and I think they're both metal as well. In fact, let's check. I think they're metal. 2 metal. So yeah, I really want to get my hands on those so that I can do a slightly historic force as well, which would be really fun. The other thing, if I get those, is that I need to go down the route, get myself some Vault Wardens, because I think they're gorgeous and they work really nice, obviously, with Mardin in terms of aesthetics as well. So those are resins, unfortunately. These are the kind of things that I'd like to get from Warhammer World so that I could see the quality of them before I pick them up, I think. But I am very tempted by Dwarf Ward and Vault Teams, Iron Guard and that kind of thing. I already have 8 of the Khazad Guard, and they're lovely models. Really enjoy painting those. Not sure if I need more of them. Probably do, especially if I'm going to be doing Durin, so I can have some as his retainers almost. But yeah, we'll see. What is the Dwarf Ballista, actually? The Dwarf Ballista is a resin kit as well. Of course it is. It would be nice to have one of those. I'm not entirely sure about war machines in Middle-earth. I know that other people swear by them, especially Uruk-hai siege weapons, apparently. But yeah, so that's another thing that I've been sort of looking at when it comes to the good side of things in Lord of the Rings, and sort of where I want to take stuff. I suppose we should stick with Lord of the Rings, I guess, and have a think about some other things that have been really inspiring lately as well. So near where I live, in Staffordshire, there's this tree that sits on Cannock Chase, and it is very, very awesome. I really love it, and it's kind of been called Groot and Treebeard and everything else in between, obviously, and it's a really inspiring little tree, and it's part of the woodland that inspired Tolkien to create Fangorn and the forests of Middle-earth. And so that led me down another little rabbit hole of looking at amazing pictures of Fangorn Forest, and just imagining how awesome it would be to do a full-on Ent army. Like I did Where is he? There he is. I did myself there you can see him. I did myself a Treebeard in the past, and I really enjoyed working on him, and it was really nice sort of bringing that together. A very different style of model compared to other models in my collection, I suppose. But yeah, so it'd be really fun to kind of revisit that and maybe do a couple more Ents. I'd love to do something that like Battle Camper did and head out into the woods and paint Ents. I think that would be really fun as a little kind of especially because you're just going to be dry brushing the hell out of these things basically and washing them, so you don't necessarily need to be too delicate with what you're doing when you're out there in the wild. But yeah, so I've also been thinking about Fangorn and Ents and everything else in between, and sort of taking projects in different directions. I think as it stands, if we're looking at the three that we talked about already, I'd have got Khazad-dûm right at the top, because obviously I'm really loving my dwarves at the moment. Beneath that, probably got the Ent idea currently, and then the sort of Minas Tirith one is just below that. And that Minas Tirith one and the Orc one kind of combine together, I think, to create one sort of larger idea, I suppose. An interesting one that I've also been looking at when it comes to, I suppose, the good side of things, is this young Thorin Balin Dwalin, the Thror and Thrain style army list for this battle, the Battle of Azanulbizar. Oh, I always get it wrong. I can never fully get it right. But I've always been drawn to this particular piece of artwork. That was one of the concept pieces that Weta did for The Hobbit. There's just something about it that is, again, sort of drawing on that slightly desperate, heroic last stand kind of thing, that I think is incredibly intoxicating as a project when it comes to thinking about how you'd paint them and model them and all that kind of thing. And because these kits, I actually quite like the Warriors of Erebor. I know a lot of people don't, but I think that's a nice kit, and I do have some Grimhammers lying around that I could touch up and sort of bring up to that next level to paint for this particular force. So I am kind of sitting in this realm where I'm like, it wouldn't be that much. It wouldn't be that much to pick up these, especially get these from Games Workshop and then get these online, because you can get them for cheap as chips, really, and start building up a little sort of young Thorin Balin Dwalin force. Maybe when I'm done with Khazad-dûm, I will go to this, but this is always like a dream project that sat in the back of my mind, that I'd really love to dive into and have some fun with, especially because I don't necessarily have a Hobbit force at the moment. I have Thorin's company, and I have the Goblins from Goblin Town, but that's about it when it comes to the Hobbit side of things. I do have Grimhammers, obviously, but didn't necessarily do anything with those, and I was going to use them for like a version of Middle Earth that I was playing with the Saga rules, so they weren't necessarily being used in the same game and context and stuff. But there's something about this battle that is just amazing, and I love the artwork and the design for it and the desperate nature of it, the heroic last stand and everything else in between. And it would just be really fun to kind of recreate that, maybe even looking at it from the point of view of recreating it from the book perspective. So looking at it with what's his name? Completely forgot his name now. Erebor Reclaimed. Let's go to that. Dane, having Dane in there, doing his thing, kicking ass and taking names. I think it would be really interesting playing around with that. And maybe getting some of these models. Oh, those models are lovely. I absolutely love those. Maybe getting some of these as well could be quite fun, especially because they're the Forge World stuff. I really like this one. I think this was a gorgeous kit that they did a fantastic job on. And that's particularly fitting considering I've been talking about Return to Moria, and there's Thorin Stonehelm there. But yeah, so that's another one that's kind of like on the list at the moment. The Battle of Azanulbizar. There we go. Work that one out. Subtitles. Last but not least, I guess, I think it'd be fun to talk about another project that's been sort of like percolating in my mind. So I think it was last year, before I moved into my new place where I am now, I had been playing, I can't remember what it was. I think it was Lord of the Rings Online. and I'd also been diving into the Lord of the Rings card game again. And there's always a character in that has been at the back of my mind as just being really cool. And it's a shame that we didn't necessarily get to see him in the movies. And that's not Tom Bombadil, it's Gildor and Glorian. Gildor has this really nice moment with the hobbits in the sort of starting portion of the Fellowship of the Ring, where he sort of takes them in and they get a really nice night's sleep in his sort of little abode somewhere in the forests, and he gives them some warnings and some advice and everything else between. And I've always loved the idea of doing something fun with Gildor and his exiles around the idea that around the theme of protecting the Shire. And it's always been one of these sort of projects that I'm like, that would be really fun to do, and playing around with different art styles and paint styles and things for the army, so that it wasn't twinned to your typical Rivendell elves that you see all the time. So one of the things that I've always seen with the Rivendell stuff is you tend to get, let's go back to this, with Rivendell, where are we? There we are. So with Rivendell, we tend to get this kind of gold armor with the blue, and I like that. I think it's really nice, but it always reminds me almost of Rivendell in its prime, almost, I guess you'd say. The thing that I've really come to enjoy is this particular armor color, this Balthazar gold style armor color. And because I think it reflects the almost twilight autumn years of the elves in Middle-earth in the Third Age, and what they're trying to strive to do to kind of protect the last vestiges of humans and hobbits and everything else in between before they, take to their ships and they leave. And they sail off into the west. And so I've always wanted to play with that idea as part of a larger force, building it on the tabletop. And that tied into this idea of Gildor and his exiles and the Lothlorien stuff as well. So playing around, so you get to play with these kits, which I think is really nice too, especially if you painted these in slightly more autumn colours. I think you could do something really fun with them. Shame that it's a slightly older plastic kit, obviously, but it's the way you got to build them, unfortunately. And they're all one piece, nice and easy to assemble, very quick. But yeah, so I've always been inspired by this idea of doing like a autumn-themed elven army. And I actually did do a little bit of work on this already. So here we go. Where are they? There's one. I'm not entirely sure whether or not you're going to be able to see this, but I did this. I did what I thought would be a really cool kind of like autumn theme for the elves, where I'm using that Balthazar gold. It's a shame that I can't really get this to focus, but there we go. Really nice theme for the elves there, with that kind of, still got the blues and the greens in there that you'd expect, but I think the autumn colour to the armour, that sort of russet, was a really nice sort of addition, I think. And what I'd love to do with that is sort of expand it, and you can see what I've done with the basing, I suppose, a little bit there, where I've put like autumn leaves and things onto the bases as well. And I'd love to take that through and paint up the rest of these to kind of match up very, very nicely with the likes of Gildor and Glorian, who I have models for. But I've also done some painting on Elladan and Elrahir, so I have the really nice unarmoured versions of those, which I think are gorgeous sculpts. Painted those up in the same style with the same basing. And then my idea for the army is that it's sort of like the frontier force that Elrond has maybe tasked with watching over what's happening in Middle-earth and the Shire. And so it's Elladan and it's Elrahir, and it's them sort of on the fringes of Troll Country and the Shire and everything, and around Bree and all that kind of thing, sort of scouring for orcs and all that kind of stuff. So the warband would be Elladan and Elrahir together with some of their high elf, their Rivendell elves. It'd be Gildor with some of the Noldorian exiles. It would be Arwen as well. I'd love to put Arwen in there. I've got a slightly older model for Arwen, but I really like it. Although I would be tempted to get my hands on this one as well, because I think it's just lovely. And it's actually metal as well, which could be very nice to paint up. I think that one's probably better than the other Arwen in terms of detail and look. but I still have a soft spot for the other one because it was one of the first Middle-earth miniatures I ever picked up. But anyway, yeah, so it would be a really nice mix of all these different characters working together. I do also have the Glorfindel kit, and it's sitting undercoated in a box, ready to be painted when I can summon up the courage to do so, because again, Glorfindel is just one of those amazing characters that I think deserves some more time on the tabletop, if not actually in other guises on screen and everything else, because he's just fantastic. He's really cool. But yeah, I'd really love to do something with them. So Eladan and Elra here, and then maybe mixing in some sort of Dunedain stuff, Dunedain vibes, throwing in some Rangers of the North, that kind of thing, and doing some kind of alliances. So looking out for those that sort of watched over Fornost and stuff like that. I think that could be really fun. And sort of playing around with that aesthetic for another army. I think, if nothing else, I've probably convinced myself now that it would be really fun to do this as kind of like the next project after Khazad-dûm. I think that's where I'm probably going to sit things. So when it comes to projects at the moment, I've got this, if we go through them again, just sort of like cap things off, I've got Khazad-dûm, I've got this kind of Rivendell, Fringes of the West, Guardian Force. I've got the young Thorin, young Thorin, Balin and Dwalin Force. I've got the sort of building Osgiliath stuff in the background, and yeah, I think it could be really fun to see where it could go with all of these. Lots of projects, lots of ideas, but I think if I was going to try and do like a top 3, I think it would be Khazad-dûm, top, get that done. I'm in the middle of doing that right now, get that finished. Then do this one, because it would be so different, and it would be doing Elves, which would be really nice to do sort of alongside the Dwarves and paint them up in different ways, especially because both of them are kind of looking to like reclaim something or defend something. I think that'd be really nice. And then maybe third up, do that kind of younger Hobbit era force. Even now, I'm starting to think of ideas that have kind of like been percolating around in my head for a very long time, and I would love to do them. Like, I wonder if I can quickly find these. What would we do? What would it be? It would probably be the Survivors of Laketown. I've always wanted to do a bard force. It just bugs me so much that you can't get that bard without that bloody thing in the background. Maybe I could find him online, but I really love that bard model, and I'd really like to do a bard with his family alongside Hilda and Percy, sort of being fighting alongside the army of Laketown, or is it the garrison of Dale? No, it would be the army of Laketown, wouldn't it? So using some of these models as some of the troops that would be fighting alongside Bard and stuff on the tabletop. I think that could be really, really fun to do. It's just a shame that it's just so expensive. So yeah, that's another one that's just come to my mind that I would love to do as well, and it would be very different too, I guess. But yeah. So yeah, let me know what you think down below. What kind of ideas would you be latching onto? I've completely forgot. There's also that Fangorn thing, doing Treebeard and his army and things. I still think that's probably coming slightly lower down the list with the Minas Tirith one, but there we go. What is your inspiration for Middle-earth strategy battle game projects? Do you draw from the movies? Do you draw from the books? Do you come up with some what-if scenarios and play around with those in your head? Do you just like going down the route of picking up random characters from the books and just maybe using them as the inspiration for a new warband or something to use in your games? Is it just the case that you might stumble upon a model that's in your collection and be like, it'd be fun to add some warriors to that, sort of going down that route? I'd love to hear what you have to say in the comments down below. Maybe you could also help me out and give me some pointers and things as to where I could take my warbands. I'm not particularly sort of tournament minded or competitive minded, I suppose, but if you could give me some fun ideas and things that I could play around with within these warbands, that would be really fun. I know somebody commented on the last Khazad-dûm video that it'd be good to add Gimli into the mix alongside that as one of the heroes that you could use to lead the way. I think that'd be really awesome to do. I've got a very nice 3 Hunters version of Gimli, one of the old metal ones, that I think would be a really good sort of addition to that force. Or I could pick up that lovely 3 Hunters plastic set, because it is very nice, and I would like myself another couple of characters, especially since I've been eyeing up that Aragorn to use as a Turin bar. Yeah, that's the thing. Maybe I'll end up getting that sometime over Christmas. who knows? But there we go. Like, share, subscribe, do all that good stuff. I'll be back with more videos very, very soon. And I really enjoyed talking with you folks in the comments. Thanks for taking the channel up above 2,000 subscribers recently and paying attention to my schedule, even though it's all over the place. Yes, I've been ill and then been dealing with other things, and this computer died and everything else in between. So it's been very expensive, but finally I think I am back in some kind of shape to continue doing more good stuff like this. And talking about inspiration and just generally sort of chin-wagging with you folks in the community here. So yes, let me know what you think. I'll have some preview images of my sort of updated dwarves in the community tab in the not too distant future. I'll show those off as well. And yeah, make sure, as always, to comment, like, share, and subscribe, as I said. And don't forget that Advent issue of SBG magazine that you can order from Damien and Tom. Get your hands on that because it is a glorious read. I've had a flick through and read through some of those, and they are really nice articles, including the joke one, I guess. But it was very nice to see that. Thank you very much, Damien and Tom. It was very good. I might put a photo of that later on during the month of December, just to show people. That'd be very nice, I guess. But yeah, I'll be back very, very soon with another video. I'm going to look off awkwardly to the side as I get ready to finish this. And yeah, I'll chat to you soon. Bye for now.